Hello and welcome to The Breakdown. You're on ThePapare.com. We're looking back exclusively at the Singers Schools rugby season this time, and we had most of our matches up in Kandy, and we'll see that Kandy have lost out to Colombo with most of the away teams winning up in Kandy. We'll tell you about that breakdown. In our results this week, we had St. Anthony's who hosted St. Joseph's, a convincing win for the Joes, 38 points to 5. Science College, the only home team to win this week, and they beat Zahira by 19 points to 8. St. Peter's College travelled up to Kingswood after that loss against St. Thomas's. They were hoping to do one better, and they did, 14 points to 7, although that was very close as well. Wesley travelling to Kurunagala and smashing Malia. They were 50 points to 10, the second half-century margin that Malia they have conceded this year. And then we had Trinity who took on Isipathana in Pallekele, and a good win for Isipathana as well, 27 points to 15. And St. Thomas's on Monday hosted Royal College at the big club grounds, and it was Royal's win, 17 points to 10, a close but dire game, but still Royal ending up winners. Let's look a bit more closely at those three games that we have lined up for you. Kingswood took on St. Peter's, and that was in Kandy, and Kingswood have a very, very good backline. They have players that can break a game, but unfortunately they didn't seem to be able to get the ball to those players in places where they could become dangerous. St. Peter's scored early on, and then they managed to consolidate. It was a very close game, and it looked at any moment that Kingswood could come through and win that game, but St. Peter's will be breathing a huge sigh of relief that they didn't make crucial mistakes, that they didn't make fatal mistakes, and they managed to hold on to that lead. It was not a great game. It was an entertaining game, but we had a lot of running rugby and a lot of desperate tackling, but not a game that coaches will be too proud of when they sit back and look at exactly what happened. Lots of individual play and no real team creativity from either team. So both teams very similar in style and patterns of play to each other. So that's probably what contributed to the entertainment factor, but still a game that both teams will be looking to improve on in the coming weeks. Then we had Trinity who took on Isipathana. That was going to be a very big game. We said last week that this was probably going to be the game of the week, and indeed it was. And Trinity looking good against Zahira last week, but just looked like they need to polish a few things up. And they looked like they had improved from the game against Zahira, but not improved enough for a very classy Isipathana side who once again do the basics right. And we spoke about Vaipu Gurunath then, how he focuses so much on basics. And this Isipathana team, without a lot of star players, without guys who are doing a lot of damage up front, without a huge forward pack, they still have an outstanding midfield. And I thought Manilka Ruberu and Manu Ratnayaka in the midfield for Isipathana were absolutely outstanding. And these two guys are game breakers largely because whatever they lack in physicality, whatever they lack in pace, they do make up with some amazing decision-making ability. And you can see that Manilka Ruberu is a fifth-year player. The way he controls the game when he comes into fly half, when he needs to, stays at number 12, puts in the tackles when he needs to, and I thought he was a big difference. At midfield was a big difference between the two sides. Trinity have big forwards, and I think they probably need to stick with them a little more instead of getting them to range wide so early on in the game. And if they keep playing to their strengths, perhaps Trinity will have a chance. They have two good wingers, but this season is going to be a tough season if they're going to make sure that they try and play to the pace of the opposition. They need to identify what their strengths are and come back and play to those strengths. Then we had a grudge battle between St. Thomas's and Royal. Of course, interest heightened after St. Thomas's won the big match over the weekend, and a lot of fans were expecting that momentum to spill over into the rugby match as well. But the Michael Gunaratna Trophy is a complete creature of its own. And Royal, after the 55-0 demolition of St. Thomas's over the course of last year, came back, and I think a lot of the Thomians were still suffering the damages, the consequences, the angst actually from that last win there. They conceded those 55 points, and that seemed evident because St. Thomas's came into the game very late on. It was then that we saw a little bit of aggression coming from them, but Royal dominated the early proceedings. For about an hour, Royal were really on top, and despite St. Thomas's having a great line out, Fadil Adahan was outstanding defensively and in the attack as well. Some of the crooked throws were clearly not his fault, but I thought he was really a one-man show for Royal in that line out. And the rest of the Royal forwards, big lads, but need to be a little bit more disciplined in the way they approach this game. So that's something that they need need to tighten up Royal going forward. They're disciplined. They gave away far too many penalties. Both teams actually gave away far too many penalties, and I think that's going to be a big problem going forward if they don't fix that. And I think they're a good enough team to fix it. Lehan Gunaratne had a very good game. Even Mihisanka at scrum half had a very good game. That's a good halves combination if they can get some width on their play. And in Karana Nandila at the number 13 position, substituting where Janidu Dilshan left off, I think he's a very, very good player. Not quite in the quality of Janidu, but of course still a very good player in his own right. And Yasas Rashmika also pops up off his wing and creates a lot of havoc. So Royal have got the goods. They just need to polish themselves up a little bit. A good outing against Malia. They've got some opposition in the forwards against St. Thomas's, and they will need to now work from that and go forward. For St. Thomas's, of course, I think they will be happy to avoid the kind of drubbing that they got last year, but Royal were always the favourites going into this game, and it was a fair result.
Live scores දැනගන්න ThePapare.com වෙත පිවිසෙන්න.
Let's look at the stats from stats.thepapare.com, all the numbers from the school season and of course all the previous school seasons as well on thepapare.com. Let's look at the two leaderboards for the moment. Royal and Wesley sitting pretty at the top. 2 wins out of 2 for Royal and the bonus point as well from last week. So they go on to 11 points. Wesley with a big performance against Malia. They were coming up to second place. They're sitting there in 7 points. St. Peter's, Kingswood and St. Thomas's have won 1 game each. They are all on 6 points, so 3, 4 and 5, absolutely nothing to separate the 2 of them, or the 3 of them rather at the moment. Malia Deva, of course, looks like they'll have to do a bit of work to catch up to the rest of the pack. In Division 2A, we have Isipathana again, very comfortable at the top. They've got their bonus points from both games, and picking up that bonus against Trinity would have been a big deal for them, especially as it was away from home. And then we have St. Joseph's also, who have won both their games, 12 points to 11, just at bonus points separating the 2 teams. Then we have Science, Trinity and Zahira. Science on 6 points, Trinity on 5, Zahira and St. Anthony still to pick up points in this season so far. Let's look at the upcoming fixtures. Lots of action in store for you in the Singer Schools League. We have Trinity taking on St. Anthony's in an all-Kandy clash up in Pallekele. And then we have St. Joseph's, who will continue on their winning way, I'm pretty sure, against Zahira. So 3 out of 3 they'll be expecting with a bonus point. Then we have Science taking on Isipathana. Should be a tough game, but I think this Isipathana side just has too much quality for Science College. It's going to be at the Science grounds, a difficult place to travel to, but Isipathana have already won comfortably away, so I'm backing them in that game. Malia Deva take on St. Peter's, and that's going to be at the Malia Deva ground as well. St. Peter's will be looking for their second win on the trot. And then we have the big game, Royal taking on Wesley. That's going to be an important one because both teams have not performed up to expectations so far. And against each other, against 2 quality sides, things may be a little bit different. Wesley have the quality to attack Royal where it might hurt. So that's going to be a very interesting game. Some talented backs in that Wesley lineup. So that's going to be a very, very interesting one if Wesley can match these Royal forwards, and the Royal forwards really big, really dominant, and that's going to be where the game is won and lost. St. Thomas is taking on Kingswood. That's also at St. Thomas's. So the Thomians lucky to have 3 home games back to back to start the season off with, and Kingswood coming down. They'll be expecting to win that one, but watch for this Kingswood team. They can create havoc from their own goal line. So that's going to be a very fast-paced game, I'm sure. So that's the action coming up for you in the Singer Schools League in the next week. And we also have our fixtures from a very quick-fire Dialogue Clifford Cup tournament which is coming up, and the top 8 club teams will be competing in that, of course. And on Friday, CRNFC will take on a Resurgent Police, the plate champions, and that match will be at the racecourse on Friday at 4 p.m. And then we have Kandy taking on Air Force up in Kandy, a neutral ground in Pallekele, and then at also on Saturday we have CH taking on Army. That should be a very interesting game as well. Army and Police would have been targeting those knockouts. And then on Sunday we have Havelocks taking on Navy. Look for Havelocks to win that one. So looking at Havelocks and Kandy to advance from this quarterfinal round, who the other 2 teams, who their opponents will be, is going to be very interesting. And those semi-finals will be on Tuesday and Thursday in the upcoming. We'll keep you posted on that in next week's breakdown. Plenty of smashing action coming up in the Singer Schools League and of course the Dialogue Rugby Clifford Cup tournament. So make sure you keep it locked to thepapare.com for all that action coming up live and exclusively, sharing the passion.